Hi Jamie, so thank you for coming along to the school today.
My pleasure.
So first question I'm going to ask you is, why did Alex Salmond want independence so much?
Well, of course, I can't speak for Alex Salmond, but I rather think he, like I, believes that the best thing for this country is independence for two main reasons. One, we'll always get the government that we elect. Right now, we have a government in London that the people of Scotland didn't vote for, and that's been the case for a large part of my lifetime. For about 2/3 of my life, we've had Tory governments that Scotland didn't vote for, and they've taken a number of decisions that have impacted rather negatively here on us here in Scotland. And the other reason, the other very important reason, of course, is that Scotland's a very wealthy country. We're well endowed in terms of natural resources, talented people, a well-educated population, got a number of thriving sectors to our economy. We're not able to harness all of that and really put it to work for people here in Scotland. We've got too much poverty amidst plenty, so I believe with independence we can harness all of that and do much better for people here in Scotland.
Okay, so what other reasons do you think it would be good for the country?
Well, I think also in terms of being able to represent ourselves in the world, I think that's another positive of independence. Right now we have to go through a filter in London to be able to try and represent ourselves in the global stage, and that may sound trite, it don't sound that important, but if you consider some of the things that's happened over the last decade or so with the illegal incursion into Iraq, Scotland of course had no option. We had to send our forces there because that's a power that's not currently in our hands here in Scotland. If we were independent, we would be able to determine whether or not Scottish troops were sent to foreign countries to kill or be killed, and of course we could also stand up with our own voice and speak on the great issues of the day and say what we thought of them.
So, do you think there are any flaws in the idea of independence in Scotland?
None that I can think of, none that come to mind. I mean, if you look at other countries across the world, they think of independence as normal, and if you think of where they are starting from, they're not starting from the position of us here in Scotland. There's just figures out the other day that demonstrate that Scotland would be the 14th wealthiest country per head of population in the world. The UK, incidentally, is the 18th wealthiest. So, if Scotland couldn't be independent, then there's only 13 countries in the world that can. And if you look at all these other countries that have become independent recently, they don't have the resources we do, but they value their independence. So I don't think independence is a flawed thing. And if we think about it in terms of our own lives, we value our own independence, so why shouldn't we value the idea of our country's independence?
So you're saying you think we'll be able to cope fine economically wise if we're one of the most wealthiest countries and there are other countries who are independent?
Well, indeed, I'm not going to pretend that there's not challenges ahead of us. We all know that there's been difficult times economically, but I suppose the point is, how do you think you're best placed to respond to those challenges? Is it by letting someone else, people that you've not even voted for, come forward with a plan that we may not agree with, or is it about taking the power back into our own hands to try and respond to those challenges?
Okay, so what will happen with our currencies is there's many thoughts going about that we can't use the British pound.
Well, of course, we know that pound sterling is a tradable currency, so any country in the world can use it, and what the Scottish Government proposes is to continue using sterling but in a formal currency union, and for a variety of reasons, not least the point I've just made, that any country can use it, so Scotland wants to use it, it can continue to do so. In terms of transaction costs for businesses, and also in terms of the fact that North Sea oil and gas, about 90% of it's in Scottish jurisdiction, that would go a long way to help underwrite the United Kingdom's balance of payments. For all these reasons, I think it's pretty clear there'll be a currency union after independence. It's in Scotland's interests, and it's also in the interests of the rest of the United Kingdom.
So another question would be that some people might worry about: what will happen to the British Armed Forces?
Well, the British Armed Forces will of course continue to be the armed forces of the United Kingdom, and if there are serving Scottish personnel in the British Armed Forces who want to remain part of the British Armed Forces, then they'll be able to do that. We already see personnel from Ireland and other places serving in the United Kingdom Armed Forces, so there's nothing illogical about that. But for us here in Scotland, what we propose, what the Scottish Government proposes, is the establishment of a Scottish Defence Force of some 15,000 personnel. Right now there's only about 11,000 Armed Forces personnel based here in Scotland, so that would actually be an increase of 4,000. And then crucially, of course, we propose that the nuclear weapons that are stationed in Scotland, that are harboured on the Clyde, should no longer be harboured there, and that will be the headquarters of an independent Scottish Navy. So I actually think armed forces have they've got a long tradition, of course, in Scotland. They've got a long positive future ahead of them as well.
Okay, so in what way will independence in Scotland benefit Cumbernauld and Kilsyth?
Well, in many ways it will benefit Cumbernauld and Kilsyth the same way it will benefit the rest of the country, in terms of the first principles that I set out earlier. I was always getting the government we elected for. I can tell you at the last Scottish Parliament election there were very few people who voted for either the Conservatives or the Liberal Democrats. I think they got about 6% between them, so clearly people here aren't backing the government of the day down at a UK level, so we would of course be ensured that we'd always get the government we wanted in Scotland, just as the rest of the country. But also, if you look at some of our key sectors, if you look at the tax office, for example, there's about 1,000 people employed there. There was just something in the Commonwealth News just the other week that the United Kingdom government wants to outsource a lot of that work. The Scottish government has been very clear that those employees would transfer over to their employment. The Scottish government, unlike the UK government, operates a policy of no compulsory redundancies. People at the tax office would benefit by that, so that's an immediate benefit for 1,000 people that are working here in Cumbernauld. And beyond that, of course, Cumbernauld and Kilsyth are very well placed, they're very well located in terms of Scotland, right at the heart of Scotland. So as we diversify and develop Scotland's economy, make Scotland an even ever more vibrant place, then we will be very well placed to benefit by that.
And truthfully, what are you going to say, yes or no?
Well, I'll be saying yes. I'll be saying yes for three key reasons. Ali, the first.
So thank you very much for coming along today. And remember to get all the information you can about the referendum, because in the end, this is what's going to shape your life.